Dear viewers, welcome to this event. My name is Strahinja Subotic and I will be the moderator for today. As the name implies, from Portugal to Slovenia towards the post-pandemic Europe, we shall discuss and take stock of what Portugal has done throughout its presidency during the past 6 months, and we shall try to see how the Western Balkans has managed to stay on the agenda on the EU. At the same time, we shall look and explore what we may expect from the Slovenian presidency in the next 6 months. So this will allow citizens to have a one-year-long perspective of the key EU developments, but also the EU integration process of the Western Balkans. Before I introduce my colleagues, I'd also like to say that this event is co-organized by the European Policy Center, CEP, think tank from Belgrade, and the EU Delegation to Serbia. This is a hybrid event, which means that we have the panelists live. We're staying at the moment at the premises of the EU Info Center, and we have been organizing such events for half a decade already, I think, each 6 months. So it's really my pleasure to see the panelists together with me today and to discuss the topics I just mentioned. I'd also like to say that default language will be English, but also Serbian will be provided as a simultaneous translation. I will repeat the same thing for Serbian speakers if they prefer to follow the debate in Serbian. Dragi gledalci, dobrodošli na ovaj događaj. Moje ime je Strahinja Subotic. Ja ću biti moderator na ovom događaju. Ukoliko želite da pratite ovaj događaj na srpskom jeziku, možete pritisnuti dugme Interpretation u donjem desnom uglu na vašem Zoom ekranu i u ostatku možete uživati u debati, naravno i postavljati pitanja. Sad se vraćam na engleski. Dear viewers, I just explained to Serbian speakers that they can follow the debate in Serbian. I also invite all the viewers to provide us with questions and comments on Facebook, also to use the Q&A section on Zoom, as this debate typically lasts between up to 1 hour and a half. The first hour will be dedicated to the panelists who will answer to my pre-prepared questions, and the last section of this panel discussion will be dedicated to you, the viewers, to provide your questions, and I will do my best to moderate this event so you may enjoy and find it really useful. In that regard, now I'd like to introduce the panelists for today. Luckily, the last time we saw each other, it was virtually. Now it's live, so I'm really happy to talk to my panelists. On my right side, I have the honor to introduce the Deputy Head of the EU Delegation to Serbia, Mrs. Mateja Norčić-Štancar. Thank you for being here with us. We've always been honored to have somebody, a high representative from EU Delegation on such events, so I look forward to your input. Next, I'd like to introduce Her Excellency Ambassador Mrs. Virginia Pina. The last time, as I mentioned, we talked virtually, so I'm really excited to talk to you live, and I look forward to learning more about to what extent Portugal has managed to fulfill its priorities throughout the past 6 months. Then I'd like to introduce His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Damian Bergant, to whom I'm speaking for the first time here at this event, and I look forward to finding out more about Slovenia's priorities and the way it will focus on the Western Balkans during the next 6 months. I think this is particularly important considering that Slovenia has already prioritized Western Balkans even before taking the presidency, so thank you for being here with us. And finally, I had the honor to talk to my dear colleague and the chairman of the governing board of CEP, Mr. Srđan Majstorović. I've known him for 5 years already, but I think he's a suitable person to talk to give us the perspective of civil society, considering that he's been involved in this process not only for years, but for decades now. So I'm really looking forward to your input as well. Dear viewers, now we're moving to the official part with the questions, and I'd like to start with Mrs. Mateja Norčić-Štancar. We all know that the EU has been quite busy throughout the past 6 months. The pandemic hasn't made it any easier for us to develop policies. We've had to think out of the box to find alternative solutions to the ongoing developments, and we've seen that the Portuguese presidency and other presidencies before Portugal have adapted their priorities accordingly. So I'd like to ask you to give me your your view of successes of the EU throughout the past 6 months, the way it has made Europe more robust, more healthy, and more safe.
Thank you, Strahinja, and thank you for the nice introduction. Maybe just a little clarification. First of all, I have to, and also ambassadors and Sarjana, I have to give you a pass on the greetings from my ambassador, who is out of the country, who usually took part in this event. So I'm today not only in the capacity of the deputy, but also chargé d'affaires. This is one thing. Also for me, as being the first time here, it's really nice that I'm doing it when my country is taking over the presidency. So for me, it's really a nice from this part as well. And of course, in this event, when the Portuguese presidency is coming to an end and the second Slovenian presidency is starting in 3 days, we always say that the Council presidency has an important role in setting the agenda of priorities in moving forward the work of the EU, and this was even more crucial, as you said in the start, during the pandemic times. So let me therefore really start and thank the outgoing Portuguese presidency really for the massive and hard work that you have done during the past 6 months. And also let me highlight the particular importance that we had the first political IGC with Serbia and the revised methodology that took place last week. And I'm also wishing my compatriots a very best luck, good wind and calm sea in the next 6 months. Now, when tackling your question, I think that since the start of the crisis, now more than 1 year ago, the EU has really been working hard to its full capacity to come out of the crisis stronger and more resilient than ever. And this has been our common strategy, I think, from the very beginning. So stronger and resilient. More resilient. So the work already started during the Croatian presidency, then continued in 2019, the first half, continued with the German, now Portuguese presidency, and also Slovenian presidency will take over of some more forward-looking approach of the pandemic. But of course, all this is with a focus on the improving of the resilience of our economies. And of course, in this part, I have to stress also that neither Serbia nor Western Balkans were not forgotten. They were integrated in this work, and it will be like that also in the beginning. And in the essence, EU in this respect had the twofold approach. One was the immediate response, and another one was the medium long-term response. And in the immediate response, when we talk about what the EU did for EU as such, it took the bold measures to protect our economy and prevent the accentuation of imbalances of our single market. Also, the first thing we did was to suspend the Stability of Growth Pact rules. So all available resources were redirected to address the fight against coronavirus. And as I said, the EU didn't forget the Western Balkans because it is a biggest donor, investor, and trade partner. An economic partner. We reacted with solidarity to our immediate friends and neighbors in the region. And so the EU, I can say that we supported the Western Balkans decisively with the 3.3 billion package to help them address the immediate health crisis with vital medical supplies like masks, ventilator, and also vaccines. And also we put in place mitigating measures to support employment and social protection. When we talk about the medium to long-term support, already at the early stage, the EU also looked beyond the immediate crisis and, as I said, wanted to build a stronger and more resilient Europe. And we put in place, the EU put in place the I think, revolutionary recovery instrument in December 2020. It was proposed together with the EU long-term budget, which we called the New Generation EU. So individual member states are now in the process of submitting to the European Commission their individual recovery and resilience plans, and this should be adopted by the Council in July on the same day as my daughter has a birthday, 13th of July. See, I will remember that. So I have to stress that this is really a unique recovery tool. We talk about 750 billion euros of support to hardest hit, 750 billion support of those for the boost of our single market, 750 billion to invest in the European Green Deal, in digitalization, and in the modernization of our single market in resilience. And of course, as I also said, also in this respect, EU, also in the long run, did not forget the region and the Western Balkans and Serbia as such. And for the region, you all know, the so-called Economic Investment Plan was adopted as the key instrument of exceptional nature. In this regard, we're talking about 9 billion euros of grants and 20 billion euros of the good loans, affordable loans, to boost investment in 6 areas that will, in a way, contribute to recovery of Serbia and in the region together, sort of like to then catch up with the EU. Also, it has a strong focus on the digital and green transition, and it puts forward up to 28 billion euros of funding and investment in the areas of connectivity, of transport, energy, digital and green agenda, environment, and so. I think to become truly resilient, we need to incorporate the needs of future challenges into the response to today's crisis. So in a way, you could see that this economic and investment plan of recovery is the mirroring of what EU has put together with this, what I called next generation EU 750 billion budget. So I think with this, I will stop. Thank you, Strahinja.
Thank you very much. I mean, you did a good job providing us a comprehensive view, but yet concrete in such a small amount of time, of what the EU has done during the pandemic to fight it, to make the Europe more robust. And I think the viewers will also appreciate the fact that you classified the steps into immediate, medium, and long-term steps that the EU has taken. As sometimes in the media, these steps are being mixed up, not presented correctly. So your clarifications will be certainly useful for our viewers. And I think this also sets the good ground for our next speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador to Portugal, Virginia Pinha. Once again, thank you for being here with us. And the last time we talked to you, we asked you what will be the Portuguese priorities. Now I'd like to ask you, considering the Portuguese priorities, you did mention to us previously Europe's recovery, implementation of the social pillar, strengthening of the strategic autonomy. Considering your priorities, how happy are you actually with the fulfillment of these priorities? How content are you? Do you think that Portugal has done enough to contribute to the previously mentioned developments in Europe?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me start by saying that I'm very happy to be here today. Last time we did it completely virtually. So I hope this opens a trend for going back to normality and to physical meetings with all present, including our viewers that are today online. Overall, I think that our president has had a positive outcome. We have achieved most of the targets and were able to restore the Council's pace in terms of work, which was quite important because the previous year was really very, very difficult to work in terms of Brussels. Meetings took place according to the plan, although mainly on virtual format, but in May and June we start to have physical meetings, and we managed to have our landmark at the Social Summit in Porto. I'm not going to get into much details or cover all the achievements in each area, but let me try to be, no, it will be very difficult, you know, with more than 3,000 meetings, for instance. There's a lot of work that is done that you don't see it. But let me just cover the ones that I think are most important. The first is the Conference on the Future of Europe that was launched on the 9th of May and is now in full implementation. Another one is the EU Digital COVID Certificate. The whole process was completely in 62 days, and the certificate will enter into force on the 1st of July. We also revised the Union Civil Protection Mechanism because we understood from the COVID crisis that we needed to have it more efficient. Matej already mentioned several MFF programs were adopted, including Cohesion Funds, Horizon Europe, and other funds. We also launched the Creative Europe program, as well as the new Erasmus Plus program and European Solidarity Corps. We had the entry into force of the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and we managed to adopt our own resources decision that empowers the Commission to borrow up to 750 million on behalf of the EU, which is something completely new that was never even thought that we would, the member states will empower the Commission to do so. Regarding recovery and resilient plans that Matej also spoke about it, there was already the approval by the Commission of 12 national plans, including my own country plan, and it will continue in the following days for the Council to approve it on the Matej's daughter's birthday, meaning 13th of July. We had the Porto Social Summit that was really important for us. It was a central event of our presidency because even before the pandemic, we knew that we need to reinforce the social pillar of the European Union. The crisis only made it more clear. So we have the Porto Commitment and the Porto Declaration that are the most significant deliverables of the Social Summit. And through them, and this is very important, European institutions, member states, and social partners are all committed to three targets by 2030, on employment, on training, and on poverty reduction. We approved the recommendation on a European Child Guarantee. We relaunched the negotiations of the Equal Treatment Directive. We reached an important policy agreement, or political agreement, on the amendments to the regulation establish a European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights. And we adopted Europe's first climate law. There was a general approach on the revision of the regulation on trans-European networks for energy, and that the progress was already done around the green agenda, and I already mentioned the first climate law. Digital agenda, we continue work on Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act, and Data Governance Act. It will take time, but hopefully the Slovenian presidency will see it get done. We organized with the European Commission a Digital Day, very important to raise awareness, and there were several ministerial declarations that give the strong political impetus to digital. We launched the Horizon Europe, and after 5 years of negotiations, we moved forward on tax transparency rules for multinationals, something that our citizens were asking for quite a long time. On rule of law, we organized a second round of the country-specific dialogue. We organized a high-level conference, and there were the hearings of Poland and Hungary under Article 7 procedure last week on the General Affairs Council. On migration, we have prioritized the external dimension of migration policy, and to show our political commitment, we held the first jumbo meeting of Foreign and Home Affairs ministers in 6 years. So, to show that really we are very committed to it. We reached an agreement with the European Parliament on new rules for the entry and residence of highly skilled workers from outside the EU under the revised Blue Card Directive. On foreign and trade policies, let me just go a little bit faster. The EU leaders meeting with the Prime Minister of India, unfortunately virtual, but that enabled the relaunching of a strong EU-India economic agenda. We were talking about it for several years. It is done. We concluded the negotiations on post-Cotonou agreement and on the Global Europe instrument. The entry into force of the trade and cooperation agreement with the United Kingdom was also very important. And you mentioned the autonomous strategy. And you knew that transatlantic relations was something quite important to us, and we managed to have or to hold the EU-Canada summit and the EU-US summit. Regarding enlargement, we adopted the document framing the new methodology that was already mentioned because it needed to be translated without modifying the negotiation frameworks of both Serbia and Montenegro. We reached an agreement on IPA fund with the European Parliament that will enable IPA funds to come to the region. We held the political IGCs already mentioned with Serbia and Montenegro last week, the political IGCs under the new methodology, and we pursued the efforts to come up with a solution that would enable the approval of the negotiation framework with North Macedonia. We will hand over that proposal that is on the table to our Slovenian friends, aiming to reach an agreement that will make possible to have the first political intergovernmental conference with both North Macedonia and Albania. So all in all, I think that we managed to fulfill our expectations in a period that was very difficult. My country was part of the presidency term in lockdown, but still we managed to do it, and we will now gladly pass it over to our Slovenian friends, the third member state of the trio that comprises also Germany, that held the presidency on the second semester of last year. I think I covered it all.
Thank you very much. That was quite a busy schedule, and I'm happy that also the enlargement managed to stay on the agenda, although not all the goals that Portugal had for enlargement were fulfilled. We could evidently see that Portugal was invested into breaking the impasse and trying to make some progress. But I can also tell that Portugal has set quite the bar quite high when it comes to fulfillment, and now I think it ushers the path for Slovenia to take away, to try to meet this high standard and be even better potentially. So in that regard, I'd like to address you, Your Excellency, Mr. Bergant. Slovenia takes presidency for the second time. This time, this is under different circumstances. Now we had. After the first time, we had Lisbon Treaty entering into force, so the Council Presidency nature changed. We also have this presidency during the COVID pandemic, which also influences the way you will do your fulfillment of your priorities. So please tell us, what are your expectations when it comes to the following 6 months? What are your key priorities? And of course, I need to ask, to what extent, we all know you will prioritize enlargement, but to what extent will you manage to balance between different interests, as the council presidencies are the ones who need to balance between the different interests of member states? You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me and that I can present myself and the Slovenian priorities. It is actually, I'm coming from the multilateral diplomacy, and I have done a lot of projects, a lot of presidencies, also the presidency in 2008, but in different perspectives. So now I'm first time in a bilateral embassy, and it is another experience that I will have the possibility to meet. Secondly, of course, I would like to thank my colleague, Portuguese Ambassador, Ambassador Virginia Pina, for their work. It was not easy, but you did it well, and you passed us, or you are going to pass us a good job, I mean, for the next 6 months. As regard our program, of course, it is based on our 18th month's trio program, together with Germany, Portugal, and Slovenia. So we would like to implement these points as a last in a row of the presidencies. And we are, of course, looking forward to hold this presidency that will be, I would say, based on a lot of challenges and a lot of things. We all know that preparation is one thing. What is in fact going on during the presidency is another thing, and we will try to do our best, of course. Regarding our program, it is a slogan of our program actually is combined in 3 words, and those 3 words are together, resilient, and Europe. So it can be read as a one sentence, together, resilient, Europe, or separately, together. What means together? We want to do it together. We want to be resilient, and we want maybe more Europe. And this is actually the slogan on which we are trying to build our presidency. But if you're going into let's say, a little bit into the details of the program, there are 4 points in which we would like to work in the next 6 months. The first point is resilience, recovery, and strategic autonomy of the European Union. We have been hit by the pandemic. It's not a new thing. It is already here for several presidencies. And we have learned a lot on the basis of the experiences that we went through. And our job definitely is to build a little bit more resilient and responsive Europe on similar crises that was the one of the pandemic. There have been also some other crises in the past: financial crisis, migrant crisis, now pandemic crisis. Maybe one of the future crises could be a cyber crisis. So we want to actually also prepare Europe and ourselves to something like this. It is very difficult because we don't have any experiences up until now, but we will try to do it. In this spectrum of resilient European Union, we are also trying to build trust of our citizens. And also, I do not want to prolong, of course, this debate, just to put some points for discussion maybe later. Economic renewal, and also European Union that is based on digital and green transition. It was already mentioned by colleagues here. So these are, I would say, the points on which we would like to do our presidency in the first, I would say, first priority. Then it was already mentioned, the Conference on the Future of Europe. This is something what Portugal started. We would like to continue. It will last throughout our presidency up to the next presidency that will be held by France, and it will finish in the spring next year. What is actually the goal of this discussion? It is to discuss very openly among the European citizens in several panels around Europe in what kind of Europe we want to live. And what will be our added value here? You know that we are preparing every year, end of August, beginning of September, Bled Strategic Forum, and this time the Bled Strategic Forum will orient itself to this question. It will be organized, as always, the leaders panel, and we would like to invite the leaders of different, let's say, European countries, including also the candidate countries, but also the former leaders, European leaders, to discuss these issues. And this could be also our, I would say, added value to this question. Now, the next priority is European Union of the European way of life, rule of law, and equal criteria for all. This is something what Slovenian presidency will strive for progress in the negotiations of the new Pact of Migration and Asylum. It will seek a political consensus for the implementation of the concept of the solidarity, responsibility, with the aim of concluding the negotiations on legislative and non-legislative acts where possible. Slovenia will also work towards a stronger, more robust Schengen area. But regarding the rule of law, Slovenian presidency will take further steps towards the institutionalization of the new process of the rule of law, review in the EU member states. It will hold the annual discussion on the rule of law report, the rule of law situation in the European Union, as well as country-specific debate. In this context, the Slovenian presidency will hold the discussion on the situation regarding the rule of law in Italy, Croatia, Cyprus, Latvia, and Lithuania. And last but not least, and this is maybe the most important also point for Serbia and the Western Balkans, our priority will be a credible and secure European Union capable of ensuring security and stability in its neighborhood. So it is, of course, our wish and aim to strengthening close strategic transatlantic relations, but also particular attention will be devoted to the Western Balkans. Slovenia is a natural supporter of the enlargement of the Western Balkans countries, I mean of the European Union to the Western Balkans countries. We would like, of course, to promote this even stronger. You said very rightly that the presidency now is not the presidency that we have held it in 2008. So now our position is more to be a sort of, let's say, collaborator, or let's say
broker.
Yes, indeed, for the European Union. So we would like to cooperate with the other 26 member states, with the European Union institutions, but also with the countries concerned regarding the enlargement. And we hope that actually our work, with our experiences in the last, let's say, 30 years of independence and our work in the international community will bring tangible results to the enlargement process in the future. Of course, we do not expect that during our presidency there will be a country that will enter the European Union, but we expect actually that there will be some, let's say, steps made on this path towards the, let's say, membership of some countries in the European Union. So that will be maybe in very short, a brief presentation of our priorities, and I'm looking forward in some questions and answering these questions.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. You did provide a good overview. You did also mention the Bled Strategic Forum. I need to give my personal note on this. I've been a participant of this forum 2 years ago, and I think it has really quite high quality, and I'm sure that will be the case even more during the Slovenian presidency. So good luck with the organization of this forum. At the same time, I appreciate that your motto is Together, Resilient Europe. You use the word Europe instead of the EU, which definitely means that by Europe you also automatically include Western Balkans in all of your considerations when it comes to building resiliency and doing it together. So thank you also for doing this. I think this is a good continuation of what Portugal has done previously, as it's always talked about strategic autonomy of Europe, not strategic autonomy of the EU. So in that regard, I think we're in a right path when it comes to shaping the discourse that the Western Balkans do belong in Europe, even prior to becoming an official member of the EU. Now I'd like to turn to my colleague, Mr. Srđan Majstorović. As I previously mentioned, he has quite a bit of experience when it comes to think tanking, but also the integration process of the entire region. So considering your experience, and I remember your participation at this event 6 months ago, you did mention that every time we receive critical notes from the Commission reports, European Parliament reports, non-papers from European Commission, the international reports from famous houses such as Freedom House, we always see that you did mention that this is not received well in Belgrade. It doesn't receive the right amount of attention in Belgrade. So in that regard, how do we stop being stuck in this Groundhog Day, which seems repetitive every 6 months that we talk to each other here? So how do we break away from this Groundhog Day?
Thank you very much, Strahinja, for this introduction. But when you say that someone is engaged in decades in the EU integration process, I'm not sure that this is a compliment or quite a contrary. But I would like to start by saying a big thank you to Portuguese EU Council Presidency. Once again, you managed to prove that this old saying, far from sight, far from heart, is not true. And that regardless of geographical distance, Portugal once again played a very crucial role in trying to get not only Serbia, but whole Western Balkans closer to the EU. And this is very much appreciated. And it's also a very nice segue for those who perhaps knows us the best, because some would argue that you're also part of the region. Slovenia are taking over and have a very, very positive basis to keep the emphasis on how important the completion, geographical completion and integration of the Western Balkan 6 into the EU is important for exactly being together, being resilient, and being European all together. Now, back to your question, how to get out of this situation. I would like to shed just a small hint of optimism, actually. I think that regardless of the criticism that we rightfully shared in our public addresses with regards the not sufficient progress made by Serbia in the past years, I would say, the fact that Serbia failed to open a single chapter in previous 1.5, almost 2 years, actually contribute that the Serbian government started to think about how to address these issues. So I wasn't completely, I would say, right when I said that the message well not received. Apparently, these messages were received, and we are witnessing that in the past 6 months, there is a sign of activity on behalf of the government, and that some strategic documents, legislative acts have been adopted, which were lying in the drawers for 3, 4, even 5 years before. So there is a certain positive outcome of the criticism that came to the Serbian government's address. I will not say that this is a proof that from now on this is going to be the case. The proof of the pudding is in eating it, and we need to see, obviously, that these legislative acts are now properly implemented, and we need to see the effects of these acts being implemented. And in that sense, it is, I would say, quite worrying what we witnessed on Friday last week when the Regional Cooperation Council came up with the Eurobarometer data. And when it comes to Serbia, the citizens of Serbia are particularly pessimistic. One of the questions was, do you believe that the EU membership would be good or bad for Serbia? Our result in a positive brackets is 42%. Only 42% of Serbian citizens believe that membership will be positive for them, which is the lowest score in the region. Everybody else is above us. Good, either good or either bad, again, 39%, which is, again, the lowest percentage of those who are not sure what the membership will bring to them. And when it comes to the negative feelings, we are topping the charts. 15% of those who participated said that accession would be negative. So it is quite obvious that there is a huge room to be filled with the right policies, right moves being introduced and implemented on the ground to prove citizens how adoption of European standards, European rules, and behavior in line with the major European, or rather democratic principles upon which the EU has been formed is actually important for the quality of democracy in this country. Almost 1/3 of citizens, 32%, believes that Serbia will never join the EU. Almost a third, 32%. Here we are on the equal footing with Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is a very special case, I would say, and it has its own difficulties. And North Macedonia, which also says that North Macedonian public is being exhausted with the continuous crisis that comes from their bilateral relations with some EU member states, and that they are exhausted with this. So it is quite obvious that the process needs to be somehow restarted, re-energized, and I think that that Slovenian presidency can do its share of burden. It can take its share of burden, but obviously, at the end of the day, everything is depending on the consensus of 2027. And we need to address the elephant in the room. There are countries within the EU who are not so keen on opening, doors completely open to the Western Balkan countries, and in this moment. And this is also a topic that we need to talk about. Why is that so? What is the reason for that? Why is there a fear on behalf of the European citizen that perhaps accession of the Western Balkan countries will undermine resilience rather than enforce it and improve it in a sense? So it is quite obvious that we need to continue talking, we need to continue listening to each other, and we need to try to understand the position of each other when we are discussing. When Ambassador Pina said that taking toll of the Portuguese EU Council Presidency, she mentioned Porto Declaration. It's one of the how to put it, of utmost important documents that will pave the way that Serbian citizens in the future, as the citizens of the EU, will have the right for employment throughout Europe, will be socially protected, will enjoy benefits of vocational training or adjustments at the labor market. When she spoke about digital market, it's the next, or maybe already present, big thing. Not the next thing, but it's present. And the EU is trying to put the standards, the global standards, how to regulate digital economy. And this is of utmost importance, especially for youth in Serbia, who are very easy learners when it comes to the IT industry, and they're already participating in the global market. By being part of the EU, they will enjoy the benefits of being protected by the regulations, which I have no doubt, like in the case of GDPR, which protected our personal information, will set the global standards. So For us here in this region, especially for Serbia, it is time to turn on the lights, obviously, to recognize the historical crossroad that the EU is finding itself at. The EU, as we heard from their excellencies, is trying to define its own position in the global world. And for us, it's to speed up our internal reforms, to prove that we are capable of contributing to a wider European resilience by introducing these reforms, and to demand our place among the future EU member states. It's not going to be easy. It will require some sort of some kind of introspection. We need to understand what is not working currently in Serbia, how important it is to pay particular attention to these cluster one issues. Mm-hmm. And I'm not speaking exclusively about the rule of law and fight against corruption and organized crime, but rather to pay particular attention at the resilience of the functioning democratic institutions. If we fail to introduce fair, democratic, and free elections, there is a huge question mark what quality or what sort of a quality our democracy is. And it would be very, very difficult to prove to the EU 27 that Serbia, with the democratic institutions which are failing, will contribute to the European resilience. So we need each other. Recently, a journalist asked me, who is more tired, the EU or Serbia? I said, nobody has a right to be tired. We need each other. The strategic autonomy of the EU in the global relations depends on the successful integration of the Western Balkan countries into the regulated and resilient EU. And here I will stop.
It's a good way to wrap up this part of the discussion. I think even the EU delegation and member states can take the sentence you just mentioned. We don't have time to be tired, and as we are mutually dependent. And thank you also for giving us the balanced analysis of the ongoing situation. Not everything is bleak, and luckily, as you mentioned, there is some room for some optimism, but we should remain cautious and critical, but at the same time supportive. So in that regard, we should also balance a civil society. I'd also like to remind our viewers to feel free to give us comments and questions on Zoom and Facebook. I will use this opportunity for another round of questions. I'd like the panelists to give us brief answers, as we have 10 to 15 minutes left until the Q&A section. And I'd like to turn my attention to Mrs. Mateja Norčić-Štamcar. Srđan just mentioned the results of the latest Eurobarometer, that in Serbia, for example, a significant number of population, I think 1/3, sees no perspective. They feel lost. They feel as if the situation has hit the lowest ground. In other words, they feel that the enlargement has reached its impasse. But at the same time, we've seen, you did mention that the EU is actively engaged in the region. So how do you counter these voices which are a bit skeptical and which put Serbia on a more skeptic side when it compares to other Western Balkan countries?
First of all, let me say that, and start with that what Srđan finished. We're not tired. I think none of us can afford that. I think that because region is really placed as it is, surrounded by the EU member states, and also in direct neighborhood, we're not affording that, and we will not. For region, for EU, the region is very much important. It is a strategic investment in peace and in stability. And as such, I think we have to have it in mind. We are always also, I think, having the leaders' support. it was in Zagreb summit last year that the leaders that sort of like committed them to that. Also during the Slovene presidency, the plan is to have the leaders summit on EU. Also, I think that the impetus of the Portuguese presidency with a new methodology, which is a new impetus, I think it brings a new and more positive tone. I think we've seen the good developments on the ground regarding the methodology as such, but also regarding Serbia. We had the first political IGC on the highest level coming from EU and member states and Serbia as such. I think a lot of work also, Sergeant, you said, has been done in the past, and we have to continue. And of course, also there was not only the parts on the cluster 1, but it was also the work on the so-called clusters 3 and 4 that member states are now sort of like looking into. But I think it's really, really important for Serbia to continue in this path, especially as it was already mentioned. Something is rule of law. We all know about it. We know about the constitution. We know about the organized crime. Than anti-corruption and media freedom and so, but also the importance, and I thank you, Sergeant, to mention it, it's so-called IPD, inter-party dialogue, which is also very important, but also the functioning of proper administration, which is done in cluster 1, also the horizontal thing, which makes you boost and sort of like push the whole process ahead, and of course the economy. But here I think we can collectively do again a lot. The EU delegation here is trying with several tools how to address the public to explain what EU is about, but of course it's also and always was on the country who is negotiating. So I think we will continue to work hand in hand. And I here would like also to say what is the also importance of the member states as such in the enlargement process. And don't forget that we were just talking with Virginia that with the Lisbon Treaty, the powers within the EU shifted, but the enlargement policy, which is so important policy, I think it also has to be stressed that it is most successful policy of EU ever. We should not underestimate it. We had 5 rounds already, and it's also the best transformative power we have. Of course, we heard also, Damian mentioned, we had the economic crisis, migration crisis. We heard also what Portuguese presidency did in these 6 months. So we will continue to work on it. And as the member state is chairing COELA and the GAC, you see how it's important that you can have this margin to maneuver pushing things forward. And I'm really, really glad that, and I'm optimistic that Slovenia, as was in a way also stated, and it's natural that the Western Balkans will be highly on their agenda. And I am hopeful that with collective effort here on the ground, in the member states, in the presidency and Brussels, we can collectively push for it further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to ask you a small sub-question, if you don't mind. If I'm not mistaken, you've been involved actually at the Convention on the Future of Europe back in the early 2000s, and now we see that the Conference on the Future of Europe is being launched. So can you tell us your experience? How different is this process, and to what extent can the citizens of the Balkans count on being included, of having their voices being included in the debates of the future of Europe, as this is the future of Europe we're talking about, not just the future of the EU?
Yes, I've been involved in the Convention of Future of Europe. Started in 2002, and it was chaired by Giscard d'Estaing at the time, and I was one of the proche collaborators of our minister. And at that time, a candidate or acceding countries were invited to take part as observers. And for me, it's interesting to see how those members of ours, the Slovenes, who were there, are there sort of like scattered around different important functions that member states then can have. And maybe just to mention that our commissioner was the alternate member, Commissioner Lenarčić. The chair of the GAC, Gaspar Dovžan, was also working with us. Our advisor to the Prime Minister, who was before that also our perm rep in Brussels, was also part of it, and myself as well. But I think it was important because it gave us, the acceding countries, the flavor of the functioning of the EU. So I'm pretty sure that EU, as it always was imaginative, will find a way how to include, and also in this round of this conference, the acceding countries, or those who are on the way to EU. Of course, this was then, we didn't have these platforms, we didn't have all these tools that can help us now for you to participate in that. But I'm pretty sure that there will be a way for you also to find the way. So yes, with this I think I gave a little of an insight how it was when you are coming, with also what brings in a way the membership as well to the individuals.
It's good to hear that this was useful at that time for Slovenia as the acceding country to get to know how the institutional framework works in the EU, and I'm sure that if the EU, as you mentioned, could find a way to include the Western Balkans as citizens, I'm sure the same could be applied to our region, and which could be one way to break the impasse that we previously mentioned, and to boost the involvement of citizens, which have been unfortunately a bit of Eurosceptic in the region. So this is a good way to think out of the box and to provide alternative solutions, besides having, for example, the revised methodology, and besides having the economic and investment plan that was also mentioned. And now I'd like to turn my attention to Her Excellency Pina. We also had a question from the public, which also matches my own question. Previously, you mentioned that Portugal has fulfilled most of its targets, and now I'd like to ask about the minority of those targets which have not been achieved. Here, we did mention that, for example, Serbia and Montenegro haven't opened or closed any chapters or clusters. North Macedonia and Albania haven't also managed to make steps forward. So my question to you is, had you known this, what would have you done differently? And potentially, as this was a question from the audience, which advice would you give to the upcoming Slovenian presidency?
Well, not easy. When I said most of our targets, I should have said, but to be humble, like that we achieve our targets. Now, what could have been different? You have to see that the presidency drives the buzz, but the buzz needs to include everybody, and everybody needs to be inside. Member states, European institutions. And sometimes some get out for coffee and then get back. And the buzz runs late. So I would say that mainly what could have been different is to reach some political agreements sooner. That would help, for instance, in terms of the resilience and recovery plans to be adopted sooner. That was our expectation, that we would adopt them sooner in order for member states be entitled to have the funds sooner. The sooner you start recovering, the better. So we managed to do so, but we would prefer to be in a shorter term. And that includes also IPA. IPA, if the agreement with the EP was reached earlier, the money would come to the region earlier. So let's say that the target was achieved, but we could have been quicker. One thing that our target was achieved, because we always said that we would contribute to find a solution, but you can say we contributed. Regarding North Macedonia, we contributed, we present a proposal. The decision, well, the end result was not what we would want, but that doesn't mean that the target was not achieved, because we never said we will reach an agreement. We didn't know, because it didn't depend on the presidency. The presidency offered its best support and its best offices. I think that all in all, you can also say that migration, we didn't come up with what probably was expected, but over there again, we were very, very careful, because it is a policy that is very, very difficult to reach agreement. So we knew that we had to go, slowly but steadily, and that's what we did. And now we hope that our Slovenian colleagues get the same approach in order to go forward. All in all, Portugal, this is our fourth presidency. We are no longer, we cannot say that we don't have experience, but it was a presidency that was very different from the last three. I think you mentioned Lisbon Treaty, that obviously the competences, and Matei also mentioned, that the competences are different, so we need to adapt to a different framework, and the pandemic. If it was just the Lisbon Treaty, it would have been much easier. The pandemic, it was really hard. But in this presidency, as in the other three ones, we have always acted as an honest broker. And that's what we said since the beginning, and I'm quite proud to say that's what we did until the end. So an honest broker tries to get consensus, tries to get people in the buzz. And in the end, I think that we did it. For instance, regarding enlargement, we managed to have the political IGC. Some people were doubting that, but as honest brokers, we tried to put everybody inside, and we managed. What would I say to my Slovenian colleagues? I would wish them good luck. It doesn't, I don't think I should give them any kind of advice. They will do it, and quite honestly, I wish them all the luck.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the Slovenian presidency will appreciate the insights you provided and the good luck you offered. And I'd like to turn my attention to Mr. Bergant. Your Excellency, we all see that the regional cooperation, regional integration is becoming a sort of a buzzword, regional common market and so on, so which actually allows the region to better integrate prior to becoming members of the EU. So 4 freedoms that remain the pillars of the EU are now being transported or transposed to the region. So in that regard, I'd like to ask you to what extent and how Slovenia will work on boosting this regional cooperation during its presidency. I think this question is relevant, particularly as we also have the upcoming Berlin Process Summit that will be held by the founder of Germany. So in that regard, please give us your insight.
Well, thank you very much. Indeed, Slovenia has always supported this regional cooperation in Southeastern Europe, because we believe that this is a sort of, let's say, preparation for those countries to become the members of the European Union. That will be done also in the future. So that's also one of these, let's say, steps that we are going to follow. Indeed, not only Berlin process, but there is also Brdo-Brioni process that is being led by Slovenia and Croatia, and very recently President Pahor and President Milanovic hosted at Brdo the leaders of the Southeastern European countries, and this was already a step forward in this regional process of cooperation. It was already mentioned that we intend to organize also the EU summit with the Western Balkan countries. It seems to be organized at the beginning of October. So this is also part of our program, and with that we are, of course, emphasizing this regional cooperation. Let me just say maybe a few words about this region and the membership to the European Union. We have to see the arguments why this region and the countries of the Western Balkans should become the members of the European Union. There are several arguments. The first one is definitely geographical argument, when we are speaking about the Europe and the Europe as a whole, not with the islands that are not part of the European Union. Then the second is political argument. So we want to, let's say, promote all this, what was already said, the rule of law, democracy, human rights, fight against organized crime, freedom of media, and all these things. The third argument is economic argument. It is the market. So it is very important market for the European Union, but also important for those countries, the European Union market. And last but not least is the security. And the security is very important because we have experiences what happened in the 90s in this region. We don't want to repeat this, to be repeated. We want to have let's say, the secure and stable region, and because if anything happens here in the region, that has direct consequences also to the European Union, and especially the countries that are neighboring this region. So I hope that these arguments will prevail on both sides, and that, of course, we will be all happy at the end of this.
Thank you very much. I think this extends well to my question that I was prepared for Mr. Majstorovic, and that is the issue of geopolitics. We've seen that Josep Borrell, the High Representative of the EU, has mentioned explicitly at the Foreign Affairs Council that the Western Balkans is a geopolitical problem, an issue which needs to be addressed. The Slovenian also Foreign Minister Logar, I think he mentioned that the EU has been underperforming when it comes to competing with other external actors. So in that regard, can you tell us how can we incentivize the countries of the region to stick to EU's core values, either when it comes to public procurement? Now we see that the environment is becoming an increasingly important issue in the region, and so on. So please give us your take of how this is impacting the regional stability that was previously mentioned by His Excellency, the Slovenian ambassador.
Well, let me start by saying that we can address this issue by, and this is my very humble opinion, by disagreeing with Mr. Borrell. I don't think that the Balkans should be perceived as a geopolitical problem. The Balkans is opportunity. The Balkans is a chance for the EU. And I'm not saying this for the sake of, how do they call it, sound bites. There is a substantial basis for what I'm claiming within the European public itself. The recently published European Council Foreign Relations poll says that two major issues are topping the perception of citizens of the EU of the role of the EU in the future. First, they want to see EU as a standard bearer, as someone that promotes democracy, human rights, and all the values for which the EU stands for. And the second, what is dearest to the European citizens' heart, is the EU, which is capable to become and to behave as a global player. Now let me ask you, how can these two major issues be addressed if the EU sees the Balkans as a problem? It's exactly the chance, it's the opportunity for the EU to prove their citizens that it can deliver in the closest of possible environments. This is not a neighborhood. We are part of Europe. So it is obvious that in order to address this third-party interest, Some changes are required, and I would always advocate for faster, value-based, clear condition-based, gradual integration of the Western Balkans countries within the EU. We share all the interests that Ambassador Bergant said. I would add, you cannot speak about energy autonomy of the EU without the Balkans. You cannot speak about environmental resilience without the Western Balkans being part of the common strategic approach of the EU. You cannot address the issues of European infrastructure, be it physical, be it digital, without involving the Western Balkan countries. And we proved that you cannot speak about the health issues on the European continent if you don't have a pan-European sort of a strategy. Now, for all of that, one would say, well, it's easy to say we need a faster integration, but you know, the reality is that there is a lack of trust on both sides at this stage. There is a fear that North Macedonia citizens will be tricked once again by Bulgaria. There is a fear that Serbia will play for some foreign interests if speeded up and introduced without, or rather integrated without implementing these difficult reforms in the area of functioning of democratic institutions and the rule of law. So there is a mutual lack of trust which needs to be addressed. Now, how to address this? By being very open and saying, listen, nobody's playing down the issue of national identity in the case of the spat between Bulgaria and North Macedonia. But you need to address this issue within the framework of bilateral relations and not spilling over this on the European level. Because this is not a bilateral issue. By stopping North Macedonia to become an EU member state, the Bulgaria is undermining strategic autonomy of the EU itself, because it's opening an easy door for third actors to enter. So the trust can be achieved only through an ambiguous implementation of the reforms as requirements for the EU accession on behalf of the candidates, and on behalf of the EU member states, by being very open and saying, yes, we see you, we are opening our doors, we are going to address these bilateral issues, but within your accession process, we are not going to block you, we are not going to stop you. And this is the opportunity not only for us here in the region, I would say that this is the opportunity of our generation. We were perhaps too young, some of us, when the Berlin Wall fell down, and this was one of the changing paradigms of the international relations at that time. In post-pandemic Europe, we need to build Europe together. It is time to choose perhaps not the easiest way, to choose the harder way to engage and to explain why is it important to have Western Balkan countries integrated in the EU, but alternatives are not good. So this is the only way that we can address this geopolitical rather, how do you call it? Meddlings within the EU.
Thank you very much, Srdjan, for the concrete recommendations also, which I think our viewers will appreciate. I need to make a small note that the Slovenian ambassador will need to leave us, if that is correct, due to some tight schedule. I'd like to give you the floor if you have any last words before you depart.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry because now I'm in such position that everybody wants to speak with me as a future representative of the chairmanship and the presidency. So I need to leave, but I would just like to thank you all, of course, for this very, very interesting discussion. I hope, of course, on cooperation with all of you and definitely on support of especially the member states, the EU delegation, and of course your institution in our presidency. And I hope that at the end of our presidency we would be in position to present some good results.
I'm sure you will, and we look forward to having you here again in the next 6 months to tell us about the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to enter this final phase. We do have a couple of questions from the public. I'd like to turn to Mrs. Mateja Norčić-Tamcar, who I've seen has been taking actively notes of what Srdjan has just mentioned when it comes to recommendations. Yeah, I'm sure that you have your opinion of. Would you like to maybe answer to what Srdjan has just mentioned? He did provide a couple of concrete recommendations.
No, always. I would like to sort of like have a good debate with Srdjan. It was always a pleasure. No, I was listening really very attentively what you were saying, and when you were saying that there was a trust needed between the EU and the region, I think this is one of the reasons also why we introduced the new methodology to build this trust with this more sort of like, let's say, credible, what I'm going to repeat, credible, dynamic, predictable, and more political process. And I think also when you sort of like said that there are different areas that we have to introduce in order to people to understand roaming. I think it was just the 1st of July is going to be sort of like freed among the Western Balkans countries, and then hopefully sometime in the future we will also see that this is going to be in a completely different shape with EU. Also with the economic investment plan, where we dedicated that, I think, a very nice sum of money. We work on these 6 areas which are extremely important for everybody, for the environment, for the digital part, for the connectivity, and so I think we are doing there. I think maybe we're just not saying it too much so that people don't know. I think this is the biggest problem, at least what I'm facing here as working for the EU delegation. That is sometimes quite frustrating to find what we achieved so far that everywhere in the media maybe, and also it's also not easy to explain that. So you also always have to find a new and imaginative solutions. But as I said, it's something that it's us who are doing, and then it's also we're being helped by the member states, but also by the Serbian side. It's in a way the government who is the one who is working on this. And in the case, if I can go now, when I was a Slovene diplomat or member of, or when my country was succeeding, it was us, and it was really a government doing a massive job. So I think also just another thing, I think the trust is important, but I think you can also see that we really did not forget the region. Also during the pandemic time, we really tried to do our best. I think the pandemic time was really difficult for everybody, and I think that we can be really proud as EU that we came out as we did, stronger and more resilient. And also the vaccination, I think it's very well progressed. I think we're so there by the last data that I had provided by my colleagues. We are there with Serbia, which I have to commend, and I have to thank also that me personally and my colleagues from the EU delegation got the vaccination back in March so that we could go back to new normal in Serbia. But now you could also see that EU is sort of like catching up in this respect, and we really focused on us regarding to be more resilient and to get out of this crisis, and also to help others around us who are very important and dear to us, and this is of course the region as such. So and of course, when speaking also about the region, and also as such, and you tackled it, it's the North Macedonia and Albania. I think it's really very important, and it's a EU credibility at stake that we push forward this, and I hope that in the second part of the year, when my compatriots are going to hold the presidency, that we will see the tangible results. And with this, I will stop.
No, thank you very much for your comments. It's good to hear that even the EU delegation is aware of the communication gap, that there's a discrepancy between what is being done on the ground and with what people are seeing that is being done on the ground. So I encourage also the development of this new communication strategy or ways to better promote the EU activities, and we as civil society also do our best, and this is one way to address this communication gap, but having such an event where we can discuss the key priorities and developments that are happening on the ground, and I think it will be definitely good for citizens to see tangible benefits with the introduction of the economic and investment plan, potentially inclusion in the Conference on the Future of Europe. So I think there is a reason to be quite optimistic when it comes to the next 6 months, and I look forward really to meeting you again next 6 months to take stock whether and to what extent the communication gap has been breached in the following months. Now I'd like to I'll ask Her Excellency Ambassador Pina. We have a question from the audience. You did mention at the beginning that the digital green COVID-19 certificate has been one of the key achievements, which was done in a record time, 62 days, right? It is really impressive. Yet, I need to stress out that, and this is seen in this question from the public, this wasn't seen by the officials in Serbia as an impressive feat. Some have even went to describe it as anti-European. The media in Serbia in that regard haven't shown understanding, as they thought that this would limit the travel from the Balkans to the EU. Could you send the message to our viewers that this would not take, this wouldn't actually disrupt their travelings, and how would you describe this achievement that Portugal has made during its presidency to the citizens which are viewing it from the region?
Well, thank you. The fact that we don't want to create any kind of trouble for Serbian citizens to travel to Europe is the fact that also last week, right? We insert Serbia in the green list. So it means that there are criteria, and when the criteria are met, we tend to take the right decision. Serbia met the criteria in terms of what was decided by the Council, so the Council decided that Serbia should get in the green light. Regarding the certificate is not meant for traveling. This was said since the beginning by the European Union. Citizens all over Europe have difficulty in understanding this. They think that the certificate is for traveling purposes, which is not the case. It will help, definitely. But what the European Union also said was that the certificate, a PCR test, or a proof that you were infected by COVID in the last months. This applies now to the European Union. They are considering in Brussels the ways to open it also to the Western Balkans. And I'm sure that they will find a way to do so. Serbia, in the case of Serbia, we have already the digital certificate. As far as I know, the software used is compatible with the one that was the design for the European certificate site. So let's hope that in the short term we manage to open the EU certificate to other countries.
I hope as well, and I think this could be another way for the EU to promote its achievements to citizens of the region, that they've been put on a green list, that as long as they meet the criteria, they will not be prevented from enjoying those freedoms to travel. Another question from the public, and we're reaching this end. I could argue that this could be the last question for today. It's for Mr. Majstorovic. The person from the public is firstly commenting that the Serbian officials were saying that 2 clusters are ready, that they fulfilled the opening benchmarks. Considering that you did give us a bit of an optimistic prognosis of the developments, do you see this happening, the 2 clusters being opened during the Slovenian presidency in the next 6 months? Is it realistic to expect such a development?
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, the 2 clusters opening benchmarks for the chapters which are part of these 2 clusters have been met. So in that sense, Serbia has fulfilled the criteria for opening of these 2 clusters. But once again, and this is what sometimes is missing from the communication coming from the official sources of the Serbian government, is the fact that the cluster 1, which is on fundamental, is the one that is basically dictating dynamic of the process. And this is not limited exclusively to the rule of law chapters like it was in the previous case. Now it's much more extended. It's addressing the issues concerning the public procurement, statistics, financial, public finances, but also public administration reform, economic criteria, and what we call political criteria, rather functioning of the democratic institutions. On top of that, the new methodology introduces the cross-field, I think this is the right term, cross-field implementation of anti-corruption, indicator. Which means that basically if Serbia fails to address certain corruptive activities in the field of science or in the field of education, may fall under the scope of the critical views of the EU member states. So it's simple as that. The rules are very well known. They have been just adjusted with the new methodology. They haven't changed dramatically. But in a sense, they created a vaster area where member states can now really, and this is where credibility falls in place that Matea was mentioning, credibly demand a credible response from the Serbian authorities to improve certain areas like functioning democratic institutions, electoral conditions, or freedom of media. There is a big chance for Serbia, and Serbia is at a crossroads. If we fail to understand the importance of these criteria, we are risking of becoming perhaps not a bad economy, but a very wrongly regulated society where might is right, where rule is not applied by the law. And this is, I'm quite positive, not a wish of a single person in this country. So in that sense, it is of utmost importance to address the issues of the reforms in the area of rule of law, address the corruptive cases which were raised in the European Parliament's report. And I would say that was a very positive example how the hand was lent to the Serbian government. Listen, we are providing you with a list of a couple of cases, and we want to see you successful in resolving these cases. And in that way, you are going to build the trust that currently is at a very low level. But this needs to be understood and processed properly in the Serbian government. And by doing that, Serbia will have a chance to speed up the process and use the benefits of the new methodology. But without this, I'm afraid that nothing much will change. In these circumstances, when you're negotiating with not a single negotiator, but 27 negotiators, you need to have a proactive approach and address the fears and misunderstandings, perhaps, and the doubts of all 27. That means that you have to have people in all 27 capitals speaking with their hosts and asking them, how can we help the EU by being the best in the region and pushing the region to follow us and to be integrated as the whole region in a properly functioning fashion.
Thank you.
It sounds simple. It's not. But then again, it wouldn't be fun if it was all too easy.
Thank you for your inspiring yet realistic messages, and I do hope that the officials are following closely our debate. As we are running out of time, I'd also like to thank all panelists for joining us today. I wish Portugal, even though it's now handing over the presidency, to stay actively engaged in the region. In that regard, hopefully we shall stay in touch. I also thank Mrs. Mateja Novčić-Tamcar for being here with us, and I look forward also with the viewers to let them know that in next 6 months they may expect, in 6 months they may expect another EU Council Presidency handover event where we will discuss of what Slovenia has managed to fulfill when it comes to its priorities, but also when it comes to helping the region boosting its path towards the EU. With this, I'd like to conclude this event. I personally thank you very much.
In a good Brussels way of thanking people, you need to thank our interpreters as well, because without them, this is
Srdjan is a colleague, multi-decade experienced colleague, and definitely I'll do my best to learn from Srdjan, who I closely work with. I, of course, help all people who were translators who maybe had a difficult job translating my quick, rapid speech. And at the same time, I thank colleagues from the European Policy Center for helping me technically organize this event, also the EU Delegation for co-organizing it with us. And I look forward to seeing you all at the EU Info Center, hopefully live with public next time. Thank you and goodbye.